No, we've got the last challenge. Who should support this? Maybe with this we should leave this one to the end, but who supports this connection of strategy to delivery in your organization? Does anyone do it? Does anyone fill the gap? Is anyone that integrator of the separate spoke support functions that are doing their stuff in order to enable us to make decisions in a systematic way, or are our organizations happy to be a little bit tribal and chaotic and happy to fight around decision making rather than make it information based and systematic?
You need to open the poll if you want answers.
Sorry, folks, and this is the point, Veronica, I guess.
Yeah, and I think this answers your question in the chat, or at least is one answer, Sarah. So if we go simply top to bottom, we've got changes, we understand it, strategic change, projects, whatever you want to call it. We've got where it's applicable, products in the middle, ongoing value streams that we create. And then we've got our business as usual, keep lights on, whatever your organization likes to call it. We've got strategy, which can often feel like it's floating off either to the right or to the top somewhere. And then there is always seems to be this gap. We may have good measurement in these areas about the results and the objectives, but who links that up to strategy? And then the answer in most places seems to be we have a number of candidates, but there's only really a few candidates at this level. So should we do the poll first, and then shall we come back to who could potentially fill that gap?
Yeah, the APMO, the PMO conference a couple of years ago, we asked this question, and nobody in 100 people of PMO professionals knew who was supporting the connection of strategy to delivery. Everyone knew what their support function did, but nobody knew who did that bit that's between strategy and their particular perspective of it.
That's scary. That is really scary.
Nobody.
I find that.
So people would understand what their change portfolio had and would talk about its change objectives and understand that. But when we said, well, how do all these things that are going on in each of these areas connect up and balance? So is that true with you guys?
Well, I was just typing in the messages there, and then you shut it down. So
Sorry.
I wasted all my time because I can't look at the screen and type. I was basically just saying. I mean, I know that there is this problem with centralization, but the fact is that change costs money, and every time the business goes out of operation into change or back in, or even if McKinsey say, we're in a state of complete and total constant change, the fact is someone at the very senior level needs to be in charge of saying, this is strategic. These are the changes that are prioritized because they're to do with strategy. They don't have to get involved in what they are. They just have to say, are we being busy fools, or are we actually going in the right direction? And that, when we come around to it, is probably what big is all about. It's integrated governance. It's not who shouts loudest and got the biggest. I wasn't going to say anything else.
Biggest support function.
Yeah.
A quick word, if I may.
Of course.
One of the things I tend to introduce people at the beginning is an acronym called MOST, which is a bit like somebody wrote a bit earlier on, and I forgot who it was actually. I'll get back to that in a minute. Right. Oh, yes, Philip Mill, just to be speaking. So the MOST stands for mission, objectives, strategy, and tactics that we use as a BA type thing, business analyst thing. Right. And going back to the ownership, the mission is what the whole organization is there to do. Why are we here as an organization? And therefore the objectives and the bigger picture and the drivers for those objectives to see that we are successful as a mission really sits at the CEO or the corporate board, right? Absolutely. So they should be championing and supporting this all the way through. Now, they should own that and champion it. But of course, obviously the management of those communications and those support functions and the gap between strategy and the delivery should be down at the portfolio level initially to oversee those changes going on with that particular business area. That's my view anyway.
That's just change portfolio, Anthony. What about
Well, no, this is I'm
business as
talking about the
usual?
whole operational. No, portfolio for me is covering operations and change. When I talk about
So
portfolio,
yeah, that's cool.
it
Yeah,
covers all the areas: BAU, products, operations, internal and
yeah,
external operational changes.
yeah.
Right? Anything goes
That's
on
the big language. Yeah,
in within the same portfolio, the business area. Yeah.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
I would.
Thank you.
So
Got
let's
some
a couple
interesting stuff popping up, David.
in a couple of organisations, a senior director has tried to own this, but there are no or few structures to support them. And this is the problem. You might try and do this parochially, but it's hard. And
How can you
after the
be
month's
crafting
drafting
a
the stuff,
strategy every month?
yeah, God. Um,
The problem's a lot of CEOs, they just say, your bag, and this is what we said earlier on, they pass the buck and that's it. You know, you're bomb now. Why am I getting involved? And you say to them, but it's your organization. If we fall flat on our face, you're going to be out of a job like everybody else, sort of thing.
So this is the big issue. This is the big issue. We spoke. I attended a session that was talking about the connection of strategy to projects, and somebody who was speaking from a large local a large local council talked about their clear strategy and some great PDFs. And when we asked them, so how is that connected to what people are actually doing? How do you understand against those strategic imperatives what actually is happening? They didn't know. That whole middle bit was missing.
Well,
And
isn't that planning?
that
Isn't that some sort of scheduling planning thing as part of it?
no, it's the transition to scheduling and planning. So it's how do we get the stuff off the paper into somebody to plan so that they don't understand the accountability, they understand what their allocation is, what the priority is, and how do we keep that lined up? It's that implementation piece. This is what the strategists are saying a lot now, is that we can develop the strategy, we've got people that can deliver, but the middle bit where we connect strategy to delivery just doesn't seem to function.
But isn't that so the portfolio support should be doing that? I thought that's the whole point because they understand how they're going to allocate resources, where they're going to go, where the priorities are, what they're going to be delivering, when they can get the people and the money and everything else to do the job by planning that out and
Yes,
scheduling it and get everybody to agree with it.
this
Especially
is the
the
point.
corporate
Yes,
level too.
Anthony, I
this is
think
what we're
that
talking
gets
about.
lost
This is what we're
between
talking about.
once it's moved into that, it gets lost, and the
I
senior
know.
leadership are no longer aware of what the detail is, or even not that they're fussed about it, but is the broad direction the right one, or they're just going around in circles and go backwards?
Well, because they
Who
pass the
knows?
button, they
Who
just think nothing
cares?
to do with them anymore, don't they, Phil? Really? Yeah.
Or
I
if the
agree. I
direction
think this is
changes, how do you re-steer? So,
well,
so here's the thing
that
that
comes down to enterprise agility. That comes down to this blinking whole thing about this misnomer of agile. Anyway, that's another hot
this is
topic.
what we're talking about, though, Anthony. This is exactly what we're talking
I
about.
know.
The
I can't
the
agree.
so so
Actually, you know.
so the another guy who came from a government agency was telling me about the high level strategy that had been done, and then it was given in vague terms to different functional areas who would go and interpret that as they see fit, would come back with what they were doing, which wasn't necessarily what was wanted in the first place, and by the time it had come back in some kind of response, the organization had moved on from wanting that anyway. So there's a
Real time
whole
collaboration. Yeah, this is
this
it.
whole connection, this integration connection, just was ineffective, not working, and it might have happened every so often when a burst of direction needed to happen, but wasn't kept as an operational capability that would actually enable a business to change its mind.
Yeah,
And
well,
in the
that's
non-public
the.
sector,
Sorry,
That's
go
the
on, go on,
easy
Ronnie.
bit. Yeah, that's the easy bit to do. To implement that is by far the easiest bit in my experience. The difficult bit is to get everybody on board and to get them aligned and get that culture working to make sure that they keep this implementation working and then we keep
Absolutely.
running smoothly and updating as needed.
So we need to wrap up and move this bit on. But the key point is here that we have lots of people that are great at thinking through strategy and Imagineering and PowerPoints and PDFs, and it's all good, lovely, fantastic stuff. We've got lots of people that can do delivery and are expert in getting things happen and all that sort of stuff, whether it's change, product creation, or effective operations. It seems to be the evidence seems to be from speaking to strategists, our own session with the governance interest network with the APM, that there's a gap. There's a gap between the strategy development and delivery, and we need to fill it with something that, whatever we call it, not business support, perhaps whatever we call it and how we structure it, we need something there to make it work.
Yeah, and I think we've agreed on some characteristics, haven't we? That it needs to be centralized, that it needs to be relatively high up to the seat of power, that it probably isn't split across multiple directorates or functional areas. And I think realistically, in most businesses, whether you call that a chief of staff, a chief strategy office, an enterprise level PMO, it's something there that has an explicit remit for planning, executing and measuring strategic execution. And they do seem very rare. They do not seem to be widespread.
Veronica, I can't agree with you more. And the problem is, I try and talk to people who can make change happen. Because if they can't make change happen, you just go back into silo after silo. Because it's got to be someone who can actually, wisdom of Solomon and pull things together.
It's like the knowing doing thing, isn't it, really? You know everything, but you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know how to get from the knowing. So we know what we want to do, but we've got to go and do it. And that's where the big gap is.